Hello and welcome to the Creative Astrology podcast. I am Vanessa Castro and I will be your host during these episodes. In this one in particular, I will go into all of 2026, so it is a little bit of a longer episode. You will notice that I try to be as concise as possible. However, there is a lot to go through, so take your time with it. A few announcements before we get into the episode. I have finally released and made available to you the Cosmic Calendar 2026. This is a calendar that is very visually easy to understand. It is color coded so you understand which element is primarily present each month. It has every day where the moon is and in which phase. You'll see whenever planets go into the signs, the Mercury retrogrades are clearly marked, so you never miss them. You'll know when the eclipses are happening, and it also comes with a map that shows all of 2026 and 2027, all of the planets, and as they go through the signs and they go retrograde, it's at a glance. You can see what's happening with each one of them for the next couple years. It's something that I personally use consistently. So that is available in my site. And also there are still about 11 days left of the month, so you can still take advantage of my end of year sale. I have all of my astrology readings with a 25% off using code solstice25. If you visit my site, you'll see the information right there. And also for anybody in Canada, I have my art prints half price, so they are $10 each. And you only pay $5 for delivery, and so it is an awesome sale. It might be too late for Christmas, but it's never too late to get some zodiac art prints for your friends' birthdays at any point through the year, right? Or for yourself to have your main three, etc. They're very beautiful. You can see them on my site as well. Enjoy the show. Hello everybody, thank you for joining. Yay, here we are. We're going to talk about the astrology of 2026. I was trying to do a live stream on YouTube, but it looks like it's not I don't know why. Anyway, but I'm getting this recorded regardless, and it will be available up on the Creative Astrology podcast for you to listen in better audio quality later, so that you can check things that you may have forgotten. Okay, so we're getting started right off the bat here. As you all should know, hello! We do have the Cosmic Calendar 2026 is ready, yoo-hoo! And you can get it on my website. The link is in the bio. And the calendar will show you all these things and, well, a lot more than we're going to talk right now. It's also going to come with a guide for 2026, which I am working on right now. And so, yeah, how about we start with the most important things that, let's think of 2025 and all the things that happened in 2025. How did 2025 feel for you? Did you notice these kind of like new glimpses of the future or new things kind of unfolding that then later on in the year sort of took a step back or were canceled or didn't follow through? That was a big thing about 2025, and this all falls in a greater context too, because we're talking about really large years-long processes that we are in the middle of ending and beginning. So we can think of all the way back to 2020, and we can even think way further back than that when we think of the planetary cycles that are ending and are beginning. So one of the longest ones, well, the longest one is Pluto that moved into Aquarius in 2023, between 23 and 24, and this year was the first year that it fully stayed in Aquarius, so it didn't go back to where it was before. But then the next up in the list of the longest cycles is Neptune, and that one goes all the way back to 2011, if you can remember or have any awareness of what was going on 14 years ago in life. That is a bit like more abstract to perceive, but the whole Neptune in Pisces time had a lot to do with between spirituality developing and becoming kind of like more known and more popular. Hello, hi, I'm just gonna send some hellos over here. Oh, I can't. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to say hi. Yes, the whole 14 years of Neptune in Pisces had a lot to do with spirituality becoming more of a thing. I remember perfectly because I've been into astrology for like more than 20 years, right? And it wasn't popular. It wasn't as popular before. It wasn't. But during this time, not only astrology, but also through the internet, right, and social media and everything becoming a lot more mainstream, as well as tarot and plant medicines and this like shamanic journeys and all these things. It all became kind of like more enhanced, for better or worse. Okay, so there were also a lot of, so-called gurus or spiritual shamans that were not quite. So that also had to do with the influence of Neptune being in Pisces, making things simultaneously more deeply spiritual, but also more deeply confusing and easier to be deceived and lost in the sauce and lost in these plant journeys or whatever. So that is one of the cycles that started coming to an end in 2025, and we only had a little bit of that during this year. But in 2026, Neptune goes into Aries. It's the first one actually to change signs. Right at the end of January, Neptune goes into Aries and stays there for the rest of the year and all the way into 2038. Hello? All the way into 2038, imagine. So that has to do with a shift in how we idealize things, in the dream, the collective dream, in what we are seeing as the ideals to follow. So the Aries concept is a lot more grounded and more action-based than the Pisces concept. The Pisces concept was a savior or a mystical type of archetype that was a lot more ethereal, whereas the Aries one is all about action and speed and courage. So it's almost like we are entering a time where the archetype of the warrior is idealized. You know what I mean? Where not so much the guru or the shaman in meditation, right? It's more about the one that goes and fights for what is right. That is where our collective ideals are moving it towards very strongly starting this year, right at the beginning of the year. Like I said, we already had a little bit of a sample in 2025, but not nearly as strong as it's going to be this year. The next planet that changes signs right after, just a couple of weeks after, is Saturn. So Saturn also, same, in 2025 we had a sample of Saturn in Aries. This year Saturn goes into Aries and stays there. Okay, it stays there all the way to 2028. And these two are actually going to meet, and you can see that in the cosmic calendar. They meet on February 20th, and they almost met in 2025. So that was another thing that we were like, okay, is this what is this gonna look like? We had this like almost conjunctions of these two while they've been dancing in there between Pisces and Aries. And so now they actually meet in 2026. And what's that going to look like? These two planets, Saturn and Neptune, are very different. Like I said, Neptune has a lot to do with the ideal, the dream, the vision. What do we see as spiritual or elevated or something to look up to, or what is the vision? Whereas Saturn is all 3D, is time, planning, work, discipline, patience, and work. That's Saturn. So the two together it's a very special moment in time that we are in collectively, right? Because it's something that is tangibilizing that vision. That's the kind of energy. And in Aries, again, this brings back to my notes here. Saturn in Aries is bringing to concrete action that vision. So we're kind of like done dreaming. We're kind of like done, especially in 2026. We are much more entering a year of action. And speed. That's a very Aries quality. It's speed, not just action, but timely. Sometimes that requires things to be done fast. Aries likes speed, but Saturn doesn't. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there, where it may feel like we're kind of like going and finding ourselves needing to measure the exact speed that we need to go with if we want to get things done. And then just over a month after, so at this point, if I look at the calendar here, just over a month after, so this is like on April 25th comes the next energy shift of the planets that we already had the preview in 2025. So the ones that we already saw where it was going for during the spring summertime for the North Hemisphere. We get to see them in full force in 2026. This is the third one. So we got Neptune, we got then Saturn, and now we get Uranus. These were the three that we got to see. And so, and just like the other two, and this you can also see in the map that I have in the cosmic calendar, which is, I'm so proud of it, because you can see 2 years there with all the sign changes, all the retrogrades. So Uranus goes into Gemini this time and does not leave. It does not go back into Taurus anymore. It'll stay there until August of 2032, when it'll start leaving the sign of Gemini. But as you can see, this is already like, okay, we are now in 2026. By the end of April, we have the Aries energy, and now we have the Gemini energy. And we add that to the Aquarius energy that we already have with Pluto being in Aquarius. So that is a lot of air and fire. And we're not even done the air and fire energies of 2026 just yet. So what is Uranus in Gemini all about? Well, Uranus is a planet that it's all about liberation. It's all about breaking the norms that limit the potential of something. So in our individual natal charts, the planet Uranus represents our individual search for authentic expression and individuality. It represents our processes of setting ourselves free from the restrictions, to be our true selves, to express ourselves authentically in a specific area of life, in a specific theme of life, or depending on where you have it. So in Gemini, this breaking free of the constrictions, I find, is a lot more, it represents, or it presents a lot more possibilities than it did in Taurus, where it was since 2018 till now, because Taurus is like the most the most stability seeking sign of the zodiac. Like it's Earth and it's fixed. It does not really, Uranus and Taurus do not really match very well. So I feel like it's been uncomfortable for Taurus, and it has also been uncomfortable for Uranus, because it's been in a place where it can't like really stretch itself that much. Whereas in Gemini, it has a lot more possibilities. It has a lot more freedom to roam. And Gemini, what Gemini is all about, it's the sign of communication, of learning, of sharing information, and of movement. And when we think about the context that we're in now, like the Pluto in Aquarius energy, which has been so hand in hand with the development of technology, AI, blockchain, and everything in between, and all the possibilities that exist there. And you got to think that Pluto is just in Aquarius, but it's gonna be there until 2043. So we've not even seen how far this thing can go, and it's already gone so far. We don't know. So I'm gonna get back to this in a little bit when we get to the Leo part of 2026, the Leo influences of 2026. But Uranus and Gemini can be all about what I think is new ideas. I think I've definitely talked about this before. Get out. I know, right? I am also kind of done with Uranus and Taurus. I'm grateful as a Taurus. I'm grateful for the new adventures, but I'm also kind of like, okay, let me chill. Uranus and Gemini, I think it's all about new ideas. I know that this sounds kind of like, but thoughts that have not been thought about, concepts that we haven't even imagined yet, ideologies and ways of seeing the world and ways of contextualizing what's happening that have just not existed before, that we haven't thought. And this can probably can lead us to some really divergent thinking, really perhaps even extremist thinking that we haven't like explored just yet. But we gotta understand also that Uranus is like a scientist. It's like a mad scientist that sets up a lab in a sign for about 7 to 8 years, and it starts testing things. So during this first early stages of Uranus and Gemini, we might see some crazy ideas starting to pop. Just like with the beginning of Uranus and Taurus back in 2018, 2019, we saw, for example, I remember very clearly because it was one of the most accurate predictions that astrologers did, was that Bitcoin was going to blow up because Taurus is all about money and material resources. And this was such an experiment, and it did. So it did, especially at the beginning of that transit. So I could see just some really crazy ideas circulating around, and perhaps we'll see important changes when it comes to the way we're communicating and the way we're traveling as well. Gemini movement, right? So that is strong in 2026. During 2025, we had only, I think we had, can't remember, it was 4 months. We had 4 months of Uranus and Gemini this year. Next year it's all year. So that'll be fun. And so yes, we have like all this fire. So by April we already have we have 2 planets definitely in fire, Uranus and Saturn, and 2 planets definitely in air, which are Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. So air and fire energies are very yang, and yang as in the yin yang. Yang is active. Yang is not like internal processing and stuff. Yang is out there, moving, action. Yeah. So that looks fun at the very least. And then after Uranus, so now we're in June, so midway through 2026. This is a whole new, like at this point, so the first part of the year, it shows full blown. It starts showing full blown what 2026 during the spring summer kind of gave us a taste of. But in the second half of the year, we get actually new influences that we haven't had a trailer of just yet. In June, we have Chiron, which is the archetype of the healing journey, move out of Aries and into Taurus for the first time in, I don't even know how long, I haven't checked. Moves into Taurus, and it's going to stay there for about 3 months. So the Chiron in Aries time kind of coincided with the Uranus and Taurus time. So it was also since 2018 that Chiron was in Aries, and that was a process and has been a process. It's still there. So this is happening, of course, in about 6 months. So we're still there. We're still with Chiron in Aries, and Chiron in Aries has been all about both the wounding and the healing processes of our sense of self, of basic identity, of basic being who I just am, of basic just following my natural impulses and desires and needs. And it's been the Chiron return for a generation born majoritarily during the 70s. And it's been a revisiting of that wounding for that generation, and it has been for the most aware and I guess like healing and self-growth oriented individuals, it has been a time of revisiting the origins of that wound, of why have I felt the way that I have felt throughout my life, of not hello of not feeling that I have full comfort in my sense of self, and hopefully for the majority of you that has been the case. It has been a case of healing those wounds, whereas for some others, when I think of social media and I think of primarily that the pandemic and how that isolated people, and how there was a common way that there's been the right way of thinking, or the right way of being, or the right way, and those who don't necessarily fall into those categories feeling ostracized or exiled, and so it has been connected with that as well, with those processes, and in the youth, to be so much online has had definitely an impact in their development of their identity. So it's not been it's kind of been unfolding in these 8 years, and we will see the consequences of that over time. And as next year, when we get Chiron going to Taurus, it's going to be only for how long? 3 months. It's going to stay 3 months between June, July, August, September. We'll have a sample of Chiron in Taurus. It'll go back into Aries after that, before it goes into Taurus later on in 27 or 28, I believe. But yes, this will be, I think, I find it interesting that Chiron is coming right behind Uranus. So the healing process, now that Uranus has left Taurus, the healing process comes into Taurus. And I believe it also has, it will be probably connected also to our sense of self-worth. All of this big technological development is getting a lot of people wondering and questioning what their actual value is in society and in the economy. It's kind of like savage in that sense, how the rates of unemployment, right, people getting replaced or feeling at least, or being afraid of being replaced by the machine, right? And so what's my sense of worth? What is my worth, my intrinsic worth? And so we'll be experiencing some of that, the healing and the wounding. Chiron is both. So and just a side note here in general, because I obviously see astrology posts and stuff. Something that always concerns me is either the over positivity or over negativity. We're always gonna have the full spectrum of the ways that how things are expressed, you know. There's always going to be all of it when we consider the collective. In our personal lives, it will be more nuanced based on your natal chart and everything, but when it comes to the collective, we're always going to see both the good and the bad expressions. So if you see, you know, someone say, oh, 2026 is going to be great because we have all these new energies, fire and air. It's like, yes, it's active. It can potentially be a lot of fun, but it can also be a bit much, right? It can also be a lot of fire. It can be a bit stressful, or it can be a little bit overwhelming, or a lot of air can be just overstimulating, right? And yeah, and what we'll see the consequences of this in the collective. We usually tend to see the extremes expressed, and when it comes to you know, Gemini energy, it can be a bit scattered, so it can be a little bit chaotic, right? So we will see, but this is not to make anybody afraid. It is just a side note to say, you know, I don't mean to be like to water your hopes for the future down. Don't do that. Like, you keep your hopes for the future always. I think it's important to be hopeful, and you know, in our manifestation process as well, we do have to keep our spirits high. But it just bothers me when someone's like, next year is gonna be awesome. Like, how do you know? Like, we don't know. Okay, that was my side note. Back to the astrology. I just really think that when Chiron goes into Taurus, I really think that we will experience we may experience a little bit of a crisis around that, around like, what is my actual value, and how can I create my sustenance in this new reality that is becoming more and more starkly different than the past. And one characteristic of 2026 is that it's no longer attached to any energies from the past at all, right? That's the wild thing of 2026, is that it's completely new scenarios. So the process of Neptune that had started in 2011, in 2026, it completely ends. The process of Uranus and Chiron that have both started in 2018, in 2026, they completely end and start anew, right? And the other time frames are a lot shorter. Hello. I'm just sending hellos here. Okay. So next, just 10 days after Chiron, also in June, we have the change of sign of Jupiter. Jupiter changes signs every year, though, by the way. So this is not like a wow thing, but it hasn't. The wow thing, though, is that it goes into Leo. And Leo is already a main character in 2026. And at this point, it really becomes a main character energy, full blown. Why? Because Jupiter is the planet that makes things grow wherever it is. So while it's been in Cancer, and it still is there, and I believe it's retrograde still, while it's been in Cancer, it has been increasing or making more relevant the meaning of home and family, or our inner world, to some extent. It has been kind of like a kinder, more gentle kind of growth. Once it goes into Leo, that energy, Oh, hi. Oh my God. Hola. Once it goes into Leo, and this is at the end of June next year, it may represent, in the midst of this warrior energy and the Chiron and Taurus, like going from healing our sense of self to our sense of self-worth, and the eclipses, by the way, which I haven't mentioned yet, but they start happening also in Leo and Aquarius this next year. So in the midst of all of this, Jupiter going into Leo might be just something that as a collective we really need. I think it's going to be something that for the lack or the beginning of this like starving that we're starting to have of real human things, even if they're imperfect, of real human expression, of face-to-face or in-person touch and connection, the realness, not the machine written or machine created things, because we're having an overload of that with the Aquarius energy, and especially with then the Gemini energy coming up, which are all about these like new ideas. Let's try these new technologies in all these crazy ways, right? So Leo represents the heart. Leo is the heart, and it is representative of summer, which is the most joyful and the most playful time of year. And Leo represents the remembering of that. It represents the encouragement of the human heart being expressed. And I love that one time someone told me that the heart chakra extends through the arms and hands. So everything we make with our hands is from the heart, right? It's like expressing itself. Even healers, like they'll put their hands, right, and do energy healing or whatever. And I'm not a healer, but I kind of do that sometimes. So maybe I am, I don't know. But it feels to me that it's like the energy flows from the earth and from above, and it kind of coalesces in the heart, right? And it goes out through there. And I find that that is that honest channel that is kind of like represented by Leo. Leo is an honest channel of the emotions that live inside, and that can be any emotion, right? It can be the more sad or bluesy feelings, but it's also the real joy of life and of being alive, of the fun of being alive, of the fun of playing and being spontaneous and being creative, and being childlike. And so I think that that's going to be really important for the context that is developing next year. Yes, thank you for joining, guys. So yes, we have Jupiter into Leo, and then Jupiter stays in Leo all the way till July of 2027, and when it goes into Virgo. But that's so it won't go back into Cancer, basically. Okay. And then what I was kind of like introducing just now, right after that, in July, the nodes of the moon. So the nodes of the moon are the eclipse points, and they will shift. They've been in all of this year, they have been in Virgo and Pisces, and we've had eclipses in Virgo and Pisces all through the year, right? In 2026, the first eclipse we have, which is in February, it's February 17th, is a solar eclipse in Aquarius. So that eclipse is going to be still with the nodes in Pisces and Virgo, but the eclipse is in Aquarius. So that opens up already this 2 years-ish of a process of beginnings, important beginnings and important endings in the Leo and the Aquarius areas of our chart. And particularly in July, so when the nodes shift. So the eclipses they start in February, right? We already opened the eclipses in Leo and Aquarius portal, hello, in February. But in July, what happens is that the nodes shift, and that dramatically shifts the focus to these two signs, like very relevantly. So if you have any this hits me particularly. I'm a Leo rising. If you have Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, or Aquarius rising, or sun signs, or for some other reason, these fixed signs, these 4 fixed signs are relevant to you in your chart, this is an important year. This is an important year for you. So when the nodes shift in July, something that I find really beautiful about this is that, you know, I've been talking all through this call. We enter this new time of, we're entering this new era, basically. There's all of these new energies, all of these new things that are shifting. When the South Node moves into Leo, it'll indicate a time of revamping or reimagining or re-understanding what that expression from the heart looks like. What do we want that to be? What do we want to be expressing, and how? And what was the identity that we had connected to that expression, that creativity, whether that was however that looks like for you. If that is that you've been hiding, maybe the combo of Jupiter going into Leo and the South Node entering Leo, and Mars is also going to be around there at the same time. Maybe all of that, plus the Aries energy and the Gemini energy and the Aquarius, maybe all of that will be your awakening, your personal awakening. If you've been hiding, if you've not been expressing your full self, if you have been shying away from expressing what your heart really needs. Leo and the heart is very connected to the inner child. I am personally very passionate about working with the inner child, because I think that I think that that's a big part of why we're even here. So I think that this is going to be a time of us really deepening our connection to what it means to be alive. You know, why are we here, especially in the era of the machines? I think that's going to be really important. And simultaneously, the North Node goes into Aquarius, which is opposite from Leo. And what that looks like to me is, you know, the fact that we are no longer in the era of the celebrity. We're no longer in the era of being famous for being, I don't know, popular and rich, you know. Or the fact that the North Node is going to be in Aquarius, and that we have Pluto in Aquarius as well right now. This is what I'm saying. The astrology reflects our reality. So what I'm saying might sound obvious to a lot of people here listening right now, but our collective experience right now is really needing our attention. Like, this is not the time to be just, you know, posting selfies. Don't take this the wrong way. It's just that it's a time for social change, basically. It's a time when the people is really needing. It's really in need, right? Our world is. So halfway through 2026, I believe that that's going to be particularly highlighted. And hopefully a lot of artists, and not artists, just like we all have an inner artist, we all have a heart, and we all were children at one point, and we all played in some particular way and thought life was fun for some specific way. The calling in 2026, especially July onwards, is how do we make use of that in order to help each other collectively, socially. Social change is, I think, one of the main things that will be awakening in 2026. Already with the first eclipse in Aquarius in February, but especially after the second half, during the second half of the year. And a few more notes about 2026. Mercury retrogrades. So I just want to say hi here. Hello, guys. Thank you for joining. All 3 Mercury retrogrades of 2026 are completely in water signs. Completely. So they don't even share with adjacent signs. They're all completely in water signs. So you can see this in the map, in the cosmic calendar, or even in the calendar itself. So the first one is between February and mid-April, and it's fully in Pisces. So between February and mid-April, we have Mercury in Pisces. So even though we have, as I was saying, all these air and fire energies, the fact that the Mercury retrogrades are all in water. So the first one is in Pisces, then midway through the year, between June, July, we have it in Cancer, and then the next one is between October and November, and it's in Scorpio. So, and like I said, fully in the water signs. They don't go into a fire sign or an air sign. No, they're all completely. So Mercury is going to spend especially long time in 2026 in water signs, which I find to be great. It's like a great compensation. Like, it might feel emotional and kind of messy in that sense, and there's something else I want to tell you, so stay here, about the retrograde. There's going to be a Venus retrograde in 2026. But yeah, the fact that the 3 Mercury retrogrades are all in water signs may be like a great compensation for the yang energy that we're going to be having with so much fire and so much air. I think we need a little bit of water. So in a way, even though those Mercury retrogrades in water might be specifically or especially confusing and emotional, maybe, at the very least, we're gonna have some water, you know what I mean? Because as things speed up and are much more action oriented and more intellectual, and talking about the air and fire energies of 2026, I think it's going to be an important and very useful compensation for that energy that we have the Mercury retrogrades in water. And the last thing I want to mention is that we're going to have a Venus retrograde in 2026. Not every year we have Venus retrogrades. They happen about every 18 months, so about every year and a half. 2026 does have a Venus retrograde, and it happens between Libra and Scorpio between October and November. So this is like already towards the end of the year. And Venus is the planet of love and relationships, and in Libra and in Scorpio, it's the deepest it gets into precisely the theme of relationships. And so that's gonna be important. That's gonna be a relevant time for us to really assess, given all the changes that might have been unfolding. Consider that this is by the end of the year already, next year. So throughout all the rest of the year, there's going to be a lot of changes in maybe our direction in life. Maybe we're going to be, with these eclipses, with the Jupiter in Leo, with the Aries energy, and all the newness, right? Like maybe we're gonna be heading into new directions. Maybe we're gonna be doing the thing that we've been waiting to do. Maybe we're gonna have a surge of confidence with that Jupiter in Leo and the Aries energies, and but at that time, October, November is also the most retrograde, enhanced time of 2026. Is when we're going to have the most retrogrades. We're going to have 6 retrograde planets, including Mercury and Venus and a few more. And so it's going to be that time is going to be particularly reflective in the fact that we have that Venus retrograde happening there at the same time. I think it could be like a time of, reevaluating with where we are at in our relationships, with our alliances and our friendships, and how is our inner compass as well in terms of self and other. Libra is usually seen as the sign of relationships with others, but I also always like to remind people that balance, those scales are primarily and first within us. So how we weigh ourselves and the other, and also how we have our inner relationships within ourselves, within our different parts, however we see that, masculine, feminine sides, adult, child, current self, past self. There's all these parts inside of us, and so I think it can also be about that. And that's been my 2026 overview. For anyone that's still here, I still have an end of year sale going on with my art prints and also with readings. And the Cosmic Calendar is online available. And just a reminder that the Cosmic Calendar will include a 2026 guide that I just followed here to tell you about the year. So that is still not up, but it will be. But you can still already get the calendar. And whoever gets the calendar before I upload the guide, you'll get it. I'll send it to you personally. So anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here. This has been great. I hope that was useful for you. I'll post this video. I hope you have a beautiful end of year. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.